America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. There's a whole lot to get to that I think will matter to you. But you know, ladies and gentlemen, there are times when you have to confront evil. There are times in your life when you got to do something that other people won't do. You got one life to live. How are you going to live it? As a bystander? As a coward? Somebody who acquiesces to bigotry and racism and anti-Semitism? You know, it's a funny thing. I would say now, boy, am I getting up there. For 55 years, I've been involved in the conservative movement. And I expanded the conservative movement to what I call the constitutionalist movement. 55 years. It's an interesting thing. I was active in not just the Republican Party, but in promoting conservatism since the age of 13. Now, this isn't a Mark, this is your life moment. I'm explaining something for a reason. I got involved in campaigns for conservatives at a young age. Often in Republican primaries, challenging the establishment Republicans, what we called rhinos, a phrase that was not that well known or popular when some of us began using it half a century ago. When I was in law school, and I got to law school early, at the age of 19, I decided to run for my local school board. Why? Because the Republicans controlled the township at the time, not anymore. Cheltenham Township outside of Philadelphia, it's all Democrat now. But the school board was filled with these rhinos and some Democrats. And they were massively raising property taxes on the people there, many of whom were blue collar. On the west end of the township, and the east end of the township, you had mostly Irish, German, and Italian. In the center part of the township, you had mostly Jewish. I ran for the school board in the Republican primary, but I created an organization. Back then, I guess, you didn't even have to register these organizations. A political action committee called Citizens for Tax Limitation. It was a tax revolt before there was a tax revolt. It was a tax revolt before there was a tax revolt on Prop 13 in California. My entire family was involved. I was able to raise $5,000 to put out a mailer, one. I went door to door in a township. I guess back then it was about 35,000 people. I hit 5,000 doors, Mr. Producer. With my mother, my father, my brothers, and me. My buddy Eric, a couple of others. I printed up a business card, put my number on it. I probably had 40 or 50 what we called back then coffee clutches. Community meetings. Did something nobody was doing. Organized at the local level. Formed an independent entity. It was unheard of back then. I was 19. I won the Republican primary in a landslide. I went on to win the general election while I was trying to do my legal studies at the age of 19, and then I turned 20. At the time, anyway, I was the youngest elected public official in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I served on that school board for 3.5 years. It was a 6-year term, but I eventually graduated law school and went out of state to practice law for a period of time. But while I was on that school board, the votes were always, there were 9 of us, 8-1 or 7-2. My buddy Bob Sillick, he was 27. At that point, I was 20. We had a tax revolt, a well-deserved tax revolt, where the citizens rose up. In fact, the tax revolt was so significant it was catching on throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Back then, a newspaper called the Philadelphia Bulletin covered it. Called me the whiz kid. It was pretty well known back then. Philadelphia Inquirer, always left wing, covered it. We had quite a battle on that school board, but the people rose up. And on one occasion, in this relatively small township, we had to have a school board meeting in the high school auditorium. 1,500 people showed up. And they're so furious that they rushed the table and turned it over. This was beginning of the Tea Party before there was a Tea Party. (1976), actually it was 1974, my older brother Doug and I, and unfortunately he's quite ill, we went to Philadelphia. To a dinner. They introduced Republicans in that area to a governor who we heard about, we didn't know much about, named Ronald Reagan from California. It was introduced by a senator who we knew less about, named Paul Laxalt from Nevada. They were best friends, neighboring governors. I watched Reagan. I said, that's my man, my brother and I. The problem was, in Pennsylvania, it's a fairly moderate Republican state and a Democrat state, very competitive as it is today. They were not Reagan fans. They were Gerald Ford fans. And after Gerald Ford in 1980, they were George H.W. Bush fans. Well, I was a Reaganite. And we formed a group of young Turks to run for delegate to the 1976 convention. To vote for Reagan. I believe, by memory, there were 82 delegate slots. Unfortunately, my position on the ballot was way down the list. And in order to help some of the other delegates, that is, delegate candidates, I stepped out and supported them. And we won several. And at that convention in 1976, I believe it was in Kansas City, Ronald Reagan almost defeated Gerald Ford. It was about 100 votes apart. And after Reagan spoke, everybody in the convention knew that they had picked the wrong candidate in Gerald Ford, who went down to defeat. 1980 was another battle in Pennsylvania. Same Republican establishment backed George H.W. Bush. Reagan decided not to campaign in Pennsylvania, to focus his resources elsewhere. And so we did a write-in pretty much for him. And he did a significant number. He did very well. But as you know, he went on to win the nomination. I left everything behind, my budding law practice, and joined the Reagan administration. Actually joined it before the president was sworn in December 1980. My father and I, we drove up from Dallas. He came down to Dallas to pick me up and bring me to Washington. I started to work in the Reagan administration early on. Who knew I would become the number 2 lawyer at Interior, deputy solicitor? Who knew I would become associate director of presidential personnel overseeing federal judges and so forth? Who knew that I would become chief of staff to the Attorney General of the United States? Always a great honor to serve great men and to serve a great purpose. I never expected to be in this business, radio. That's for sure. Fast forward, as I left the Reagan administration, I eventually joined an organization called Landmark Legal Foundation. What a great group, and they still are. And we litigated for school choice. We won the first major case in the state of Wisconsin in the Supreme Court there. We won 2 Supreme Court decisions, federal Supreme Court. Thanks to Landmark and a couple other the conservative legal foundations, we now have school choice. We didn't before. We had to clear the constitutional weeds out of the way. We went after the National Education Association and beat them for using dues-payer money for political campaigns without reporting. We went after the Environmental Protection Agency. We beat them too. They were held in contempt. We went after Bill Clinton down in Arkansas with Judge Susan Wright. And it was our filing that had him held in contempt. And I can go on and on and on. What a great honor. I eventually became president at Landmark. 1987, being a talk radio aficionado, I started to listen to a guy by the name of Rush Limbaugh. And I would hear him, I said, this guy's good. Before him, I used to listen to a man named, you know who, Mr. Producer in New York? Bob Grant. Philadelphia, I listened to conservative hosts there as well. I would send stuff to Rush through a fax machine on the Constitution and the law. I stopped, figured he didn't care. He used all of it. And out of the blue, he called me on the phone. He said, keep it coming, Mark, keep it coming. It's very important. I kept it coming. Then he said, what's with the fax machine? It's time to use emails. Well, we didn't use emails a lot back then. So I did. Catherine was his right-hand lady, absolutely fabulous. And one day he called me F. Lee Levin, the director of his legal division. I was shocked and honored. We became best friends. He introduced me in his own way to Sean Hannity. We became and are best friends. Now, I've been involved in the Reagan Revolution. I've been involved in the Tea Party movement with my book, Liberty and Tyranny. Went to multiple massive rallies. It's where I first met Donald Trump. My book, Liberty and Tyranny. The Convention of States movement. I'm one of the founding fathers of that. With Mark Meckler. With my book, The Liberty Amendments. And on and on. And here I am on radio. Having been a guest, then offered a platform. You know, prior to radio, I never earned a lot of money. I earned very little money. At a foundation, working politics, working for the movement, doing these sorts of things, I never earned that much money. Now I do very well. Even early on in radio, I didn't earn very much money. Now, where am I going with all this? I'm going to tell you in a moment because it's very, very important. It's not about me. I know it sounds it. That's not my point. I want to talk about a lesson and what is important in life and what is important in our movement and our mission. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. I'm getting to a point, you'll understand, just stick with me and be patient. In 2014, a wonderful man came to me, a fairly wealthy man named Kerry Katz, quiet man. He said, I'd like to start a digital TV network or a platform independent of everything else. And in 2014, he and I, the two of us, founded Conservative Review and Conservative Review TV 11 years ago. In 2018, Blaze came to us. They were looking for more liquidity. And Blaze didn't purchase us. We purchased Blaze. And then you have Blaze Media today. So we did that as well. I want to talk about the next step and why I'm bringing all this to you. So there's some context. And much of the time, when the conservative movement was getting stronger, particularly the constitutional part of the conservative movement, there was no Fox News. Her Fox News was relatively new. We'll be right back. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let Let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin. Take the survey on America's future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/Levin. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, the research arm of conservative media. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Now, to wrap this up and then to get to the point that I'm laying the foundation for here, I think my contribution to talk radio, in addition to being supportive of Rush and Sean, and Bob Grant for that matter, is several-fold. Number one, I've decided to use this format to delve deeply into American history and the Constitution. This format has never been used for that before I came to talk radio about a quarter century ago. And worked closely with Rush and Sean on both of those. Number two, when I got into syndicated radio, my first radio station was WABC in New York. But when I got into syndicated radio, the ABC Radio News Network wanted to syndicate me at the time. Even conservative hosts never got involved in Republican primaries. They had different theories for that. I gave him my background. There wasn't a Republican primary that I ever ignored, because that's where the rubber hits the road. I began getting involved in Republican primaries. I began getting involved in taking on the Republican establishment, particularly in Washington, D.C. There were a few pieces written, including at National Review. What does he mean by establishment, this Levin? I knew what I meant by establishment. Since the age of 13, I've been fighting this establishment. I'm trying to advance constitutional, conservative government and culture. We've come a long way since then, haven't we? So many of you embrace it and support it, and I'm thankful for that. And the whole constitutional conservative movement, which has always been at the center of what I've done, is including as Chief of Staff to Attorney General Meese, who really pushed the whole notion of originalism, has been key to what we do here, among other things. So we changed conservative talk radio in that sense. Less slapstick, less happy-go-lucky, although that's fun too, don't get me wrong. Much more serious, these substantive issues, and I'm not putting down anybody. Everybody's contributed to this who's in this, well, almost, in this format. The left could not compete with us. In the early 2000s, it really took off more in like 2005, 2006, that area. Podcasting came to be without getting into the whole technological history of that. And that meant basically anybody could get on, quote-unquote, on air. Anybody, from any room in their house, before there were even video feeds and so forth. So you got this podcasting. Podcasting relies on what, Mr. Producer? The internet. It relies on the internet. It relies on handheld devices. This program is podcast. This program is podcast. Not new podcast information. The program I do is podcast because people like to have their devices and listen on their own. That's fine. My attitude is let's push it out on all platforms humanly possible. Now we get to the nub of the matter. You have people who are podcasting, who have big companies behind them, big foreign money behind them, big domestic money behind them, some of it dark money, who are not so much broadcasting, they're podcasting, a word that was developed in the early 2000s. iPods, iTunes, they came up with podcasting. Not all, but most of these people haven't contributed a thing to this country. Nothing. You look at Tucker Carlson. What has he done for the country? He's written for magazines. He's been on TV. He's been on radio. Now he's a podcaster. That's big money. I told you before, I didn't really come into money until I did broadcasting. Candace Owens. Podcasting. What has she done for the country? Absolutely nothing. Zero. Nick Fuentes, 27, 28-year-old punk, a racist, a neo-Nazi. What has he done for the country? Absolutely nothing. Zero. Then we have their surrogates who are with them. And after the first of the year, I'm going to start mentioning them too, who've made an enormous amount of money off these platforms. Some of them are disgruntled former employees at Fox, disgruntled former employees at one of the network TV, whatever they are. Some of them were doing morning radio. What have they done for the country? What movements have they been involved in a significant way? I don't mean ride the coattails and grift off them. Nothing. Nothing. That's okay. But when you have a microphone, whether it's a podcaster, whether it's radio, whether it's satellite, whether it's television, you have a responsibility to contribute something to the country, at least integrity and honesty, and not just grift. You also have a responsibility to your fellow countrymen. So if you see some poison that is spreading, some cancer that is metastasizing, that's going to damage our country, damage our culture, damage our society, politically, damage our party, and destroy everything that's been built, you have an obligation not to acquiesce to it as a coward, certainly not to join in with it, make excuses for it, but to confront it. Whether it's on the left or the right. You have an obligation, a moral obligation, to do just that. No, it's not a waste of time, your time or my time, when I do it. It's crucial to who we are as a society. It's very crucial. You've got guys like Bannon. The guy pled guilty to a felony, ripping off little old ladies, raising money for a wall that was never built. He's telling us Trump's going to run for a third term. Well, there is the thing called the Constitution. Nobody gets to run for a third term. Nobody. And he won't. Bannon's playing you. Jews are under attack by these people because anybody can get behind a microphone. And it just turns out the Jew haters are very much attracted to the microphone like flies to you-know-what. But now Christians are under attack by these people. You, Mr. and Mrs. America, Jew or Christian, the Judeo-Christian value system that created this marvelous wonder called the United States of America. You're now under attack by some of these people who you've been following, who you've been paying money to, who you defend, whose comments you repeat. Why am I the only one talking out about it? Oh, I don't mean posting something on the internet. I know you are my audience. You want the truth. You work hard. Those of you who retire have worked hard. We know about the Marxist Islamists, the communists. We see it. We know about it. I talk about it every day. But there's another cancer growing within. And it's our responsibility because they're waving around our flag. They claim to speak for you. Neo-Nazis. Anti-American. Anti-military. Or one or more of the above. It is shameful that people with big audiences say nothing. But I know why they don't. Because when you do speak out, you come under vicious attack. Not just by them, but by the liberal media who promotes the Tuckers and the Fuenteses and the Bannons and the Owens day in and day out. They promote the anti-Semites and the bigots and the isolationists and the hate America crowd. They want them to define you and me and our party and our movement. They paint a picture of America that is dark. They paint a picture of America that is racist and bigoted and anti-Semite. They paint a picture of America that rejects the majority faith in this country, Christianity now. I'll get to it, trust me. They lie, they twist, they spew, and they know that at least for now, the more they do that, the more they attract and the more money they make and the more attention they get. And that's what they have to have if they're podcasters or if they're subscription-based services or whatever they are. They need it. They don't need 90% of the country. They need 2% of the country. That's good enough. Good enough. 5%. Good enough. So they get more extreme and radical and crazy by the day. And that media I spoke about promotes them more and more by the day. That media, the left media, knows they're liars, knows who they are, hates their guts, but uses them to try and dumb down the country and try and convince the country that this is you and me. When it's not you and me. So I want to talk about this more when we return. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. These guys talk about the forgotten man. What have they done for the forgotten man? What have they done in our politics, in our society to duke it out with the elitists, with the big government types on the left, with the bureaucrats. What have they done for the forgotten men? Nothing. They claim to stand for young men who are put upon by this culture and this society. Well, what have they done for young men who are put upon by this society? They preach desperation. There's no way out. Who are these people preaching to us? And from what experience? I remember Joe Rogan. I think it's great he's successful and he's fantastic and all the rest. I remember him doing TV shows, doing UFC. What has he done for the country? We sit around. Is he going to endorse Donald Trump? Is he going to interview Kamala Harris? Look at his great influence. And we hear this from people who've done about as much for the country as he has. With cable TV, with podcasting and so forth, people become famous very quickly with very, very thin backgrounds. Very thin. There's something going on that's very destructive to those of us who believe in liberty and free speech. There's an exploitation and abuse taking place by people who will move from one site to another and get $100 million while they're talking about the average guy. I don't like what they're doing to illegal aliens. Well, they go on yachts and everything else. There's some disconnect out there. It's problematic. There's a great fiction out there. And next hour, I want to play a few clips. Clips that are out there, that are pushed out there by Dan Abrams' group, Mediaite, by Matt Drudge's website. I don't even know where he is anymore, if he even exists. Boy, you ought to see the texts I have from Matt Drudge when he used to be a conservative. I got texts. I got them from everybody. I refuse to release my text with Charlie Kirk, in which he condemns one congresswoman in particular and other people. Because when he texted me, he did not expect me to be releasing his texts, so I'm not going to do that. But I know what he thought. And others. This is one of these long-form shows where I'm not bouncing from issue to issue, even though there's many important issues out there. Nothing more important. Nothing more important than the truth. Nothing more important than having respect for this audience. People have come into this program over the years, tens of millions from when I started. When was it, 2002, Rich, something like that? A lot of people. They've come through these airwaves right here. And I want to finish up the point, because now Jews are under attack, Christians are under attack, Charlie Kirk is under attack, Trump is under attack by these very voices and these very same people who claim to represent you. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. We're going to get down to it now. Our number is 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I don't like the fact that foreign governments, mostly Arab governments, are buying our politicians, are buying our politics, are buying our colleges and universities. People talk about the amount of money we, quote-unquote, give Israel, $2-3 billion, to defend the entire West, the entire West from Islamist terrorists. $2-3 billion. Well, I don't like the fact that we have Arab countries spending hundreds of billions of dollars, up to trillions of dollars in our country to destroy our faith, to destroy our system, our constitution, in the minds of our children. And by faith, I mean the founding of the nation, Judeo-Christian values that embrace all faiths and a diverse viewpoint. But I want you to listen carefully now, because I think this is the apex of the problem here. This is the apex of the problem. My views on Israel haven't changed. My views on Israel haven't changed almost 25 years on radio. And all of a sudden, I'm Israel first. Now, here's a dirty little secret you need to know. When you look at comments on the internet, a lot of them come from Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Qatar, China, and Russia. They're not Americans. So if you're sucked into that and you participate in that kind of gang attack on people and use that kind of language, you're a sucker. You're being used. Most of you in this audience aren't doing any of that. It's other people. But I want you to listen very carefully to this, particularly if you're a Christian. This is Tucker Carlson, who finally showed some ankle. But I knew it was there the whole time. And it's not very pretty. Cut 19, go.
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like the Karl Rove. I mean, all people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that?
Right.
And I can just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because like, what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended by that as a Christian. That's why. So I don't, like, why not? Like, I'm pissed at the neocons, very pissed. I've said that a million times. I've been mad since
your father was a neocon.
December of 2003 when I went to Iraq. And so, like, I went and asked straightforward questions to Ted Cruz, because that seemed like there's a sitting senator who's like serving for Israel by his own description. He seemed like a worthy target.
Serving Israel. This is how they dismiss people who they disagree with, but that's not the point. Israel's not the point. Ted Cruz isn't the point. Mike Huckabee posted, he said, I didn't know I was suffering from a vein virus by embracing the Bible. What's a Christian Zionist? It's a Christian who embraces the Bible. Why? Because it's a recognition that God, the chosen people, the Jews, are in the Holy Land, again, according to the Bible, because that's where God wanted them. And for Christians, the Messiah, Jesus, if he's to come back, the Jews and the Christians need to embrace the Holy Land and populate it. This is the Bible. This is Christian teaching. And he's offended by these Christian Zionists more than anybody else. More than the Jews even. More than the Islamists. More than the Marxists. More than the terrorists. More than Hamas. It's these Christian Zionists, you see. It's a brain virus. That Christians believe that the state of Israel is to exist, must exist, because of God's word. It's Tucker Carlson and his little buddy, little Adolf, Nicky Fuentes. By the way, this guy's a white supremacist and he's part Mexican. What is that all about, Mr. Producer? Do you even understand that? What a crackpot. But anyway, that aside. The one who's blasphemous here is Tucker Carlson, who's an ignoramus. Those holy sites are holy sites for Christians, too. You got the big blubbering ignoramus, the confessed felon, Bannon, who says, hey, I have an idea, everybody. What is it? What's your idea, Stevie? I think the Middle East should have 3 countries or 3 divisions, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim. Another guy who doesn't know the Bible. He's a slob. Guy comes out of Hollywood. He's fooled people left and right. He's ripped them off to enrich himself. And he's quoted all the time. Like Carlson. Why? Because the Mediaites, the Drudge Reports, the Daily Bestialities, the Huffington Compost, the others, they want them to be our voice and our face. To undermine us. To undermine the Christian faith, the Jewish faith, to undermine our country, our Constitution. Because these guys are frauds. They're freaks. But they can make a few bucks, more than a few bucks, a lot of bucks. Where else would they go? What else could they do? So Catarlson is now attacking evangelical Christians and Christians across the board. Christian Zionists. Let's play that again just so you can hear it really well, because I've told you before, you think he's just a Jew hater? He's a Christian hater, this guy. And Fuentes is too. Because their belief systems, the things they say, they're not Jewish, they're not Christian. They're hideous. Go ahead.
How do you explain Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, and there are a lot like that, John Bolton. I mean, I've known them all, George W. Bush, like
Pastor Hagee, virtually every pastor in the United States of America. How do you explain all these pastors? How do you explain the tens of millions of Christians who go to church every Sunday, who live this belief, who actually read the Bible and believe the Bible? He finds you all hideous. He finds you all worse. Worse than Jews. Worse than anybody else. Go ahead.
All people I know personally who I've seen like be seized by this brain virus, and they're not Jewish. Most of them are self-described Christians, and then the Christian Zionists who are, well, Christian Zionists. Like, what is that? Right. And I can just say for myself, I dislike them more than anybody. Because like what? Because it's Christian heresy, and I'm offended.
All right, that's enough. You've heard it once. You've heard that part twice now. So it's Christian heresy to be a Christian. I hope the pastors of this country are going to speak out now, too. You see, Christianity hasn't changed. Judaism hasn't changed. Our support for Israel is changing because of people like this. If he says he's a Christian and he speaks like this about Christians, is it any wonder how he hates Jews and he speaks the way he does about Jews? Have you ever heard him talk about Qatar this way, Mr. Producer? I haven't either. They talk so little about the Islamists, don't they? Why is that? Why is that, America? So trashing Jews, trashing Christians, effectively trashing the Bible, people of faith, and yet we've got Islamist terrorism. We've got it all over the world, all over the Middle East, slaughtering people. We've got it in our own country. He talks about AIPAC more than he talks about CARE. CARE, which is tied to Hamas, which hates America, which spews all this garbage. Council on American Islamic Relations, which was born in a hotel outside of the Philadelphia International Airport by Hamas. And we know this because the FBI bugged the place and we heard it. And I've talked about it. Now, I want you to think about the Mossad or the American FBI Or now Mike Huckabee's the enemy, and Ted Cruz is the enemy, and this one's the enemy, and that one's the enemy. Does he even know the name of the people who used to run Hamas? How about Qatar? I'll bet he knows them. Hell, he interviewed one of them. Carlson's part of the enemy within. That's what he is. There's not another human being on earth that's going to call him out the way I do, and that's what he is. Now let's move to Nick Fuentes. Guy's 27 years old. He's a punk. Absolute punk. For years, he was trashing Charlie Kirk. For years, he was smearing Charlie Kirk. For years, he was attacking Turning Point USA. He's a jealous little bastard. So why would Tucker Carlson, who claims to be a friend of that organization, platform this guy? Can somebody explain that to me? And not you, Tucker. You're a fraud. I don't need to hear from you. Although I'm happy to. I don't know. What does that show you about even his loyalty to a friend? You bring on Nick Fuentes, who trashed openly Charlie Kirk all the time. And you know who else he's trashed, Mr. Producer? His wife, Erica. He believes she's conniving to take control. He said that even before the horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk. So how do you platform a guy like this? How do you platform Nick Fuentes if you're a friend of Charlie Kirk? Dinesh D'Souza released some texts he had with Charlie Kirk in which Charlie Kirk is, in no uncertain terms, talking about how he has nothing but disdain for this guy Fuentes, what he's done to him, his wife, and his family. And Carlson platforms him, basically gives him a wet kiss. You know, I used to say you're gay, he says, but I apologize. It's clear you're not. What are going through their minds? How sick are these people? Is this normal? He's a fan of Hitler, but then he says he's not. But then he says he is. But then he says he's not. He says, I should leave the country, being a Jew and all. Why don't you make me leave the country, you little punk? All I know is my family fought for this country. I don't know what the hell your family did. But here's Nick Fuentes today. And by the way, I only have these audio because of Mediaite. Mediaite, Dan Abrams' site. They keep pushing these guys, pushing them, stirring the pot, getting their hits. Shame on them. Shame on them. And when I'm done with this, I want to tell you what Fuentes says about me. Now, by the way, he has said many sick, damnable things about me, as he has everybody. But he's a punk. And the vast majority, you never heard of this guy. And that's a good thing. But now I'm going to educate you, and I'm going to make him infamous. Now, here he is, platformed by Tucker Carlson, the guy who trashes Charlie Kirk, who Carlson claims to be buddies with, trashes Charlie Kirk's wonderful wife. Tucker Carlson was at the memorial service, and he brings this bastard on his show. Cut 21, go.
So it was like late December. It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh,
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was an admirer, but we don't need to go into that. I guess. Like,
He's a fan of Joseph Stalin? He's an admirer of Joseph Stalin. Tucker acts surprised. Why is he surprised? A little bit of research will show he's a fan of Hitler. He's a fan of Stalin. He's a Jew hater in many respects. He's a Christian hater. He's a Trump hater. It's not that complicated. Go on the internet. You'll learn all you want about this scumball. What? Stalin? You're a fan of Stalin? I don't know. You're a fan of Putin. Aren't you, Tucker? I've got to take a little break. More when I return.
Mark Levin.
There's a reason I'm proud to say Pure Talk is my wireless company, because they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, especially when it comes to supporting our veterans. This month, Pure Talk is choosing to support Canines for Warriors, an incredible organization that rescues and trains dogs, then pairs them with veterans struggling with PTSD. These are men and women who serve with honor, but when they come home, their brotherhood and support network they had in the military too often disappears. Canines for Warriors steps up to fill the gap, giving these heroes purpose, companionship, and healing. That's exactly why Pure Talk, a veteran-led company, supports them. Choose a wireless company that shares your values, and with talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, you could also be saving a ton of money. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch today. Again, go to puretalk.com/LEVIN and switch to America's wireless company, my wireless company, Pure Talk. There's one more cut I want to play for you, but we don't have enough time in this segment, and I play it, and then I want to move on. There's a lot of stuff going on, especially with this Mondani and others. Look, we have 3 hours. We've got plenty of time. If you're one of the listening to affiliate that only plays us for 2 hours, you can get us on multiple platforms on your own using your cell phone or your computer or your laptop or anything you want. We're everywhere. That was a purposeful decision that I made. So you can listen to that. But I will get to this third clip because it's important as well. And it's all over the media, particularly the internet. Mediaite ran it first. This guy, Charles Nash, is a real piece of crap. A real stupid guy, but he likes to play in the swamp with really dirty people. And I've warned him before. This guy, Nash. I've warned him before. He runs a clip that you're going to hear. Of course, Drudge runs the clip because he's a sick bastard. Then it winds up on Twitter and elsewhere where the neo-Nazis and the Klansmen like to run the clip. We will run the clip too. So I can explain to you exactly what this guy's doing and saying. I would point out that none of these media organizations, not one of them, Mr. Producer, not one of them, Mr. and Mrs. America, called me or contacted you, right, Rich? Not one. To ask me to comment on this. Not one. Because truth be told, because of all the activism I've been involved in over the decades, taking on the left, taking on the Democrats, destroying our country, now taking on the Marxists and the Islamists, like few others, they want to play what these guys say. They want to promote what these guys say. The unconscionable propaganda that they spit out. And the more they attack conservatives, real conservatives, not other conservatives, real conservatives, whether it's Carlson or Third Reich Bannon or little Adolf Fuentes or any of them, the more they want to promote it and them. I'll be right back. There's a reason I'm proud to say Pure Talk is my wireless company, because they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, especially when it comes to supporting our veterans. This month, Pure Talk is choosing to support Canines for Warriors, an incredible organization that rescues and trains dogs, then pairs them with veterans struggling with PTSD. These are men and women who serve with honor, but when they come home, their brotherhood and support network they had in the military too often disappears. Canines for Warriors steps up to fill the gap, giving these heroes purpose, companionship, and healing. That's exactly why Pure Talk, a veteran-led company, supports them. Choose a wireless company that shares your values, and with talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, you could also be saving a ton of money. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch today. Again, go to puretalk.com/LEVIN and switch to America's wireless company, my wireless company, Pure Talk.
Saving America, one show at a time. The Mark Levin Show, 877-381-3811.
We don't need any foreign money to run this show, or anything I do. No foreign money. Not from Israel, not from Qatar, not from anybody. Can all the podcasters say that? So during the course of the program, Tucker Carlson's program, such as it is, so he has this guy on. He's platforming his Charlie Kirk hater, his Stalin lover, Hitler lover. Of course, Tucker himself has raised serious questions about Churchill, and his guests on who are more supportive of Hitler than Churchill. This is a sick group, I'm telling you right now. Very sick. That's why they don't spend a lot of time attacking Mondani. That's why they don't spend a lot of time attacking Tlaib and Omar. No. They attack Christians and Jews and Netanyahu and Trump. Oh, and me, which is fine. So I want you to listen to this. It's almost choreographed. Cut 20. This is Fuentes, Little Adolf with Carlson. Go.
I don't know if I've ever even said this on an interview before.
First of all, doesn't he sound like a punk, Mr. Producer? I don't know if I ever said this anymore. It sounds like he's still prepubescent. Like the you-know-whats haven't dropped yet. May I say that on the air, Mr. Producer? I don't know if I ever said this before. All right, let's start over. Go ahead.
I don't know if I've ever even said this on an interview before.
Yeah, what is
I was listening to Mark Levin's show. This goes to show how normy I was.
Trust me, you're not anymore. You're as abnormal as they get. You didn't listen well enough. Go ahead.
I listen to him every day.
You listen to Mark Levin every day?
In high school, yes.
Wow.
I was a fan. Wow. I loved his show, and I actually liked how he was kind of obnoxious and mean to his callers.
Yeah.
Vicious.
Guilty,
and I liked that.
guilty.
I thought that was funny. But I'll never forget one show.
What happened?
He goes live, and he says, America's becoming a majority non-white country. Does anybody think that's a good idea? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, that actually doesn't sound so good. I didn't really even think that America's becoming majority minority like that.
Wait, so you were radicalized on race by Mark Levin?
Mark Levin?
Yes.
Are you making that up? Or that's
a real story.
It's real. It's real.
Amazing.
Wow. He planted the seed at least.
Oh. I never said that. I went back. And I remember this. When Obama was president, there was a period of time, and if the media had contacted me, I would have spoken to them, where he kept using the census figures, and he kept saying in 2044, I think that was the year, 2044, America will become a majority-minority country. I kept saying, why does he keep saying this? Like he's rooting for it. Why would you root for it? I mean, things happen spontaneously, or if you have open borders, they don't happen spontaneously. But what are you rooting for? I mean, when you have people who are listening to this, and the President of the United States says, America will become a majority-minority country, what is it that he's promoting? Racism. I have always said Obama was a racist and an anti-Semite. And he's both. And that's what he was doing here on racism. America will become a majority-minority country. Mark, but that's what the census said. Okay, fine, but why did he keep bringing it up? And so my view is there something wrong with white people that they need to become the minority, or something better with minorities that they need to become the majority? In other words, underscoring how racist this is. You better dump that just in case. I used a word that may not be permitted. This little Adolf claims that that is what planted the seed. Let me tell you something, you little punk. That seed was always there. That seed was always there. Again, I've talked to tens of millions of people who listen to this program over the years, tens of millions, maybe 100 million. You're the only one with the seed. You're it. You're it. So apparently you were born with this seed. And since I'm so influential in your life, why don't you cut it out? Why don't you cut it out? Why are you such a Jew hater, Christian hater, America hater? I'm planting another seed, you little bastard. What do you think? So this was all phony baloney. But there's the headlines. Exactly what these left-wing sites and media want. The grifters, the eyeballs, the hits, the clicks, and all the rest of it. Not one of them called. Not one of them. Not one of them contacted Mr. Producer and asked, what do you make of this? First of all, I make that he's sick. I make that when he was a kid, he was stupid, just as he is now. A non-white, becoming a majority non-white country. I was commenting on racist Obama's constant references to the census information. Like, why does he keep doing that? And so in his little twisted pretzel of a brain, small as it is, little Adolf is a liar. Maybe it affected him. But his concern should have been the racism being spewed by Obama. And this started his trip, and it was very fascinating to Catarleson. Really? You serious about this? Oh, yes. And so what's the play here? So forevermore, Fuentes is the pig that he is, thanks to Levin. Right, Mr. Producer? But it ain't going to work. It's not going to fly. Why? Because I have this microphone. Because I'm here every weekday. Because I've been doing this for over 20 years. And everybody knows what I believe and think. I don't have to pretend. I don't have to cover things up. If I'm wrong about something, I will tell you. If I feel bad about something, I will apologize. But I know exactly what happened here. And it's not as Fuentes says, I said it. So whatever seed was planted, it's of his own making. In other words, he's unhinged. He's 27 years old. Look how he's destroyed himself. He thinks this is a big deal. He's got, a couple million followers. In a country of how many billion people in this country? 350 million? It's not a lot. It's not. But let's say you have one follower, no follower. This guy has no dignity. None. Now, when you're an adult, an older person who has experience, like Catarleson, you take this 27-year-old neo-Nazi and you platform him. Even though he trashes your country, even though he trashes the greatest generation, even though he promotes Hitler and Stalin, even though he's a Jew hater and a Christian hater, even though he has spent years trashing what you say is your close friend Charlie Kirk, and now his wife, you platform him? You platform Holocaust deniers, some of whom are comedians? You're a sick bastard. And so is he. Now I circle all the way back from where I started, ladies and gentlemen. Are you not concerned that more people who you listen to and watch do not call these people out? Provide you with a background? Does that not concern you that the left, whether it's Mediaite, Drudge Report, or the corporate left media operations, use these people to try and define you and me, and try and define our president, try to define our founders? Doesn't this bother you? Are you anything like these two? Anything? Do you dismiss the Bible? Do you trash Christians? Do you trash Jews? Do you believe Stalin was a great man? Do you believe Hitler was a great man? These people do. At least in part. Tucker has his own sickness. This guy has his own sickness. What have they done for the country? Nothing. Nothing. Zero. Look what they're doing to the country. I ask you veterans out there, or active duty personnel. I ask you police out there and firefighters. I ask you pastors out there and rabbis, priests. What do you think about all this? We've got on the left, really, not the extreme left. We have really sort of the Democrat Party now that's the home to these Marxists and Islamists. People who want to destroy the way we live, our system, our freedom. And then we have this that distracts us, that tells us over here, look at the Jews, over here, look at the Christians, over here. Wasn't Hitler great? Was the Holocaust real? Look at here. Stalin was a great man. I remember his birthday, December 18. And the left media keeps pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. We have a lot of smart people. We have a lot of patriotic Americans. Some of them are serving overseas. Some of them are serving here. We have scholars. We have intellectuals. We got interesting people. We've got an agenda. We've got principles that are very, very important, that promote freedom and unalienable rights and all these things. And yet this is what these guys are talking about. This is what these guys platform. It's the lowest of the low. It can't get any lower than this. And they do it for one or more reasons, maybe one of them, maybe more than one, because they're mentally ill and they've figured out this is the niche way to make money. They're not good enough. They're not smart enough. They're not interesting enough to be pro-American, to promote American principles. No, they go to the outer outskirts of the nut jobs. And then they tell the people who listen, I'm sorry you're down in your luck. It's the fault of the Jews and the Christians. It's the fault of the American corporate system. It's the fault of... They sound like the left. They sound like Mondani, who they never criticized, by the way. Now, I'm going to move on at the top of the hour, but I thought time was needed to get into this and to discuss it at some length. Because the truth is, if I don't, it's not going to happen. And we need to watch our backs, and we need to stand up to this. And I'm hoping the pastors throughout America will hear those words that I played and speak out. Because these people are attacking the Christian faith, and they're attacking the Word of God in the Bible now. I'm not proselytizing. I'm just telling you the truth. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
There's a reason I'm proud to say Pure Talk is my wireless company, because they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk, especially when it comes to supporting our veterans. This month, Pure Talk is choosing to support Canines for Warriors, an incredible organization that rescues and trains dogs, then pairs them with veterans struggling with PTSD. These are men and women who serve with honor, but when they come home, their brotherhood and support network they had in the military too often disappears. Canines for Warriors steps up to fill the gap, giving these heroes purpose, companionship, and healing. That's exactly why Pure Talk, a veteran-led company, supports them. Choose a wireless company that shares your values, and with talk, text, and plenty of 5G data for just $25 a month, you could also be saving a ton of money. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch today. Again, go to puretalk.com/LEVIN and switch to America's wireless company, my wireless company, Pure Talk. You know, we all ought to be united in trying to stop Mondani, trying to stop the left, Marxist Islamists, and all that sort of thing, but it's not happening. It's just not happening. And all these Arab countries buying chunks of our country, buying influence, this is a bad thing. It's a very worrisome thing to me. It's the one thing that's bipartisan. Have you noticed that, Mr. Producer? How much time do I have, Rich? I want to play this clip. This is Zoran Mondani at the 2023 Democratic Socialists of America National Convention. Did you know they had a national convention? Hat tip to Mays Moore on X yet again. Cut one, go.
You know, I think in the first question, there was this setting up of a context where this idea of hyper-local and international. And I think that for anyone to care about these issues, we have to make them hyper-local. We have to make clear that when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF.
You got that? So in the boot of the New York Police Department, you cops in New York, when your boot is on somebody's neck, It's really the Israeli Defense Forces who have laced your boots. Now, this sounds like Fuentes, right? Sounds like Carlson, right? Sounds like Bannon, right? This punk is a Marxist Islamist. Of course, he's smearing the IDF in Israel, but he's smearing the NYPD. The NYPD doesn't take orders from any foreign country, let alone Israel. So why does he bring up Israel? The same reason a Fuentes would bring it up, a Carlson would bring it up, because they're bigots. That's why. He's a bigot. He is a thoroughbred, American-hating, Jew-hating, fraud, and phony. And the NYPD is in for a horrific 4 years if this man is elected. These cops who put their lives on the line, they're going to be even more threatened than ever before. But this is one in what, 100 statements this guy has made? And what's he going to say? It's Islamophobic for pointing it out? No, you're a punk. You're an Islamist. You're a Marxist. You hate the country and you hate Jews. And by the way, you hate moderate Muslims too. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Zorhan Mandami at a press conference yesterday. Poor little bastard. He's such a victim of discrimination. As he promotes terrorist language, terrorist organizations, terrorist individuals. As he demonstrates he hates America. Just incredible. Oh, this Islamophobia aimed at this poor fellow. Cut 2, go.
I was speaking about my aunt. I was speaking about Zehra Fouy, my father's cousin, who sadly passed away a few years ago. And for the takeaway from my more than 10-minute address about Islamophobia in this race and in this city to be the question of my aunt tells you everything about Andrew Cuomo and his inability to reckon with a crisis.
No, actually, jackass, it tells us everything about you. You're a liar. Your aunt never faced Islamophobia. She wasn't in the country. She never was. She lived in a country called Tanzania and worked for the government there. We don't know anything about your father's cousin. I'm sure she didn't face Islamophobia either. I mean, it was obviously so bad you couldn't remember if it was your aunt or your father's cousin. It brought you to tears in front of the camera. So people notice. They point out you're a friggin' liar about this and everything else. And then it's Cuomo's fault. How's it Cuomo's fault? You jerk. What else? Cut 3, go.
This tells you everything you need to know about the Republican Party.
Okay, so now we know everything we need to know about Cuomo. Now we know everything we need to know about the Republican Party. We know everything we need to know about Americans. Everything we need to know about Jews. From a guy with an IQ of 14.5 who's got mashed potato between his ears, who hasn't accomplished a damn thing in his life. But now we know everything we need to know, don't you know? The most vapid, asinine, poisonous, cancerous campaign I can ever remember. Go ahead.
This tells you everything you need to know about the Republican Party.
Yeah, okay.
At a time when 4 million Americans are in danger of losing their health care.
Yeah.
When the federal government is choosing to price hungry Americans across this country out of their very groceries.
Okay, when the federal government price people out of their groceries, how come he doesn't mention it's Obamacare? How come this fraud, phony, fool doesn't mention it's Obamacare and the Democrats? Go ahead.
Is to take on the Muslim guy.
Shut up, a-hole. I don't want to hear this guy anymore. He's giving me a headache. What do you think of that? Give me a headache. Then we got this guy, Jon Stewart, another spoiled brat bastard who's worth a fortune, fine by me, but he acts like, He's down for the revolution, don't you know? I'm sure he lives very well. Changed his name. Yeah, changed his name. What was it? Lipschitz or Leibowitz? I can't remember. Do you remember? Leibowitz. Yeah, don't call me John Leibowitz. John Stewart. John Stewart Leibowitz. What a clown this guy is. Cut 4, go.
I wish you all the best. Honestly, I think any New Yorker who looks at someone getting an opportunity, who's representing communities that have not been as represented, a Muslim.
What does that mean, representing communities that have not been as represented? What does that mean? That they're not of the same ethnicity and faith? Is that what that means? I mean, is that what he's saying? So Blasio didn't represent the community? Other mayors didn't represent the community? They're representing the people of New York as a people. Isn't that a good thing? I mean, this guy's like a Nick Fuentes in reverse. Nick Fuentes with the white supremacy. This guy with the... Well, now we have somebody who is, honestly going to represent, the Muslim community. They haven't had anybody representing them yet. Oh, I'm sorry. So now he's saying vote by ethnicity. Now, if people vote by ethnicity, this guy loses, right? Mamdani loses. So if all the Italians, the Germans, the Hispanics, if all the Jews, everybody else votes by ethnicity, Mamdani loses. Is that okay with you, Johnny? You dip. Ooh, I almost cursed a second time. These comedians. Stupid as hell. Really stupid. The only comedian, and I don't agree with him all the time for sure, is Bill Maher. Sometimes he's way out there as a kook. Sometimes he's not. But this guy's always way out there as a kook. Go ahead.
Progressive, a democratic socialist. There are so many different communities that are looking to you.
And he would know, Jon Stewart, because he's been to all of them. He's been in all these communities. Oh, sure. He's a man of the people. Especially the very wealthy left-wing, PhD people. All these communities are looking at... You guys got 45% in a city that's 65% Democrat, 22% independent left, 87%. The guy's got 45. All these communities are looking for you. They really are. Says the not-so-funny comedian with his 10... I remember when those comedy writers went on strike. They had to stop the show, didn't they, Mr. Producer? Remember that? Because Johnny can't write his own jokes. You know why, ladies and gentlemen? Because he is a joke. Go ahead.
I hate to put it on you, as a bit of a Jackie Robinson moment. And I know
Jackie Robinson moment. It's a Jackie Robinson moment? Yes, because of all the Islamophobia swirling around this poor fella. He's such a victim. Multi-millionaire, hasn't done a damn thing in his life. Trashing Jews. Trashing other communities. Going on and on. How dare you question this guy and his genius, his ideologies, and so forth. Global Intifada. What's that all about? Don't worry about it. He didn't mean it. Took it back eventually after he was pressed 4,000 times. What's the problem? Go ahead.
That probably wields some
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Producer? And I mean this. Are comedians getting dumber? I mean, I hear this guy, Dave Smith. He sounds like a schmuck. I hear this guy, Jon Stewart. They basically come from the same perspective, even though they would argue they don't. He sounds like a schmuck. How stupid are comedians? Not all of them. But too many of them sound very stupid to me. Stupid. Like Jon Stewart. Man, oh man, what an exciting opportunity. Thank you, and I wish you the best. I do. I do. I really wish you a Marxist, Islamist, multimillionaire, global intifada. Now notice Jon Stewart wishes this guy the best. Does he wish us the best? The American people, regardless of background? Does he? Wasn't he palling around with an imam who was a character witness for the man responsible for blowing up as best as he could In 1993, the World Trade Center? Does that not bother Jon Stewart? If it bothers him, he's a funny way of telling people, he's this big defender of the cops and firefighters and 9/11 and so forth. Is he not aware? Of course he's aware. He's a fraud and a phony and a fool. He's not funny either. But they'll re-up him, because they re-up liberals with no ratings. That's what they do. I mean, what would the Comedy Channel have? Well, a little bit of humor would be good, rather than a dumbass like this. Is John Oliver still on the Comedy Channel, Mr. Producer? Where's that guy? I mean, they like spawn. They spawn. Like this guy spawned Colbert, then he spawned John Oliver, then he spawned the other guy. I can't remember who he is. All the same ideology. All stupid. All unfunny. They need 10 writers, and they're still not funny. They still can't draw an audience. But you remind us of Jackie Robinson, who was a Republican. You very much do. You remind us of Jackie Robinson. Yes. Did you know Jackie Robinson supported the global intifada? Did you know that, Mr. Producer? Oh, yes. He supported it even before there was one. Did you know Jackie Robinson would have palled around with an imam who was the character witness for the man responsible for trying to blow up the World Trade Center and killed 6 people? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would be Jackie, wouldn't it? Sure. Does Mondami have baseball cards, too? I mean, I'll bet they're pretty valuable, don't you, Rich? You're so stupid, John Leibowitz. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Oh, yes. Let's see here. Just bear with me. I can't get to all of it. But in the Atlantic, which I don't normally read, but now and then, there's actually a good article. I'll bring it to your attention. The U.S. is on track to lose a war with China. I fear for this myself. Now, why? We're talking about conventional war, of course. And the bottom line in the article, and it's very well stated, is we don't have the capacity to rebuild after a first or second wave of conventional war. We don't have the capacity to build ships. The Chinese have a capacity to build them many and fast. We don't have the capacity to replace our tanks. They have the ability to do it many and fast. I've done shows on The Blaze on this. I've done shows on Fox. I've done many shows behind this microphone on radio. The Communist Chinese, for at least a decade, have been on a war footing. They've been building for war. They've been building for expansionism. They're the imperialists. They're the colonialists. And they are prepared for war. He's cleaning out the higher ranks of the military to try to put some of his more aggressive people in charge. The one thing that's slowing them down is their economy is a disaster right now. But it won't be a disaster forever. Now, I understand they have these minerals that we need, these rare earth minerals, as they call them. So it's hard to put in a death blow economically, but they are there waiting to have their economic throats cut. They really are. It's teetering. Their financial system is very weak. The value of their currency is very weak. Their banks are very weak. And by the way, Russia is in a disastrous economic condition. Their banks are holding on because the government keeps printing money and pushing it into the banks. Because Putin took the requirements, all the vetting requirements off the banks to give money to their military construction, development and military production companies. But China has the capacity, the industrial capacity, to rebuild after a first or second wave beyond what we can. And this is why President Trump is doing what he's doing in terms of tariffs. Many of us are free markers, but I see what he's doing here. And over at the at this site, excuse me, the Atlantic, by Phillips, Payson, O'Brien, he has a book out apparently. But in relevant part, he writes, in World War II, individual battles, even those remembered as the most important, really destroyed much equipment relative to how much was being produced at the time. What decided World War II in the end was that over the course of several years, the Soviet Union and its key allies, the United States and Britain, were together able to generate and sustain better forces than Germany could ever hope to match. Like World War II, the war in Ukraine has turned into a long, brutal struggle of force before launching its full-scale invasion in February 2022. Russia, as well as many outside analysts, believed its superior stocks of tanks, warships, and other vehicles would crush the Ukrainians in short order. The war might be effectively decided in hours and could end in a few days. With the Russians in control of Kiev and Ukrainian leaders fleeing for their lives, this was a tragic misunderstanding of war. Instead, Ukraine fought back effectively. The war lengthened and metastasized, and it led to more than 1 million casualties for Russia alone. In the past 3.5 years, both sides have constantly had to build up new forces with new weapons and keep them supplied in the field. The armies of 2025 now bear little resemblance to the armies of 2022. Initially, drones were mostly an afterthought, and both sides deployed tanks, armored personnel carriers, and in some cases, massed infantry near the front. The Ukrainians have used drones and missiles to sink many of Russia's largest surface vessels in the Black Sea and have driven the rest back to port. And both countries are bombarding each other almost nightly with long-range drones. By the time the war is ultimately decided, both militaries will have been destroyed and reconstructed many times. That's exactly what happens in most wars. These dynamics do not bode well for the United States in a long war with China. Right now, the U.S. has what appears to be the more capable military and certainly the more battle-tested, technologically advanced one. It might inflict disproportionately higher loss on the Chinese at first, but because its diminished production capacity in the United States, we would struggle to make up even a small part of the battlefield losses that it would inevitably suffer. China, which is much of the workshop of the world today, as the United States was in World War II, could churn out replacement weaponry at an impressively quick pace. We cannot. Controlling shipping in the Pacific Ocean would likely be the first task for the U.S. military. But the U.S. mostly lacks a shipbuilding industry now. 2024, for instance, the United States built 0.1% of the world ship tonnage, according to a recent Center for Strategic and International Studies analysis. Chinese shipyards built more than 50%. The U.S. has allowed its shipyards to close and lost generations of shipbuilding engineering expertise, and it now has hardly any experienced shipbuilding workers outside of a few shipyards that supply the U.S. Navy. It would have to recreate all this expertise, which would take years before it could start producing ships at a fraction of the Chinese output. This is frightening, and we've talked about this. Shipbuilding is just one industry in which U.S. production would struggle to keep up. China, for instance, controls 90% of the world's commercial drone production, supplies many of the components that are being put in both Ukrainian and Russian drones today. American wealth helps only so much. States cannot supply throw money at a problem and create productive strategic industries in a short period. To compound the issue for the U.S., its allies are even less prepared militarily. Washington is currently going out of its way to alienate them instead of fostering the cohesion necessary to deter or fight China, he writes. Our industry has gone off a military footing over the past several presidencies. And this gentleman is correct, Phillips Payson O'Brien. This guy is correct that if the second and third wave, we are not going to have the weapons we need. Our soldiers, airmen, and the others, they're not going to have what we need. Our industrial capacity is focused elsewhere. You think we can just switch things over? Well, there's a much higher need for expertise than there was in World War II. Shipbuilding is a big undertaking. It is a massive undertaking. And we're not there. And it's going to take a lot to get there. And let me ask you a question. Given what the Democrats are doing now, given their priorities, do you think we'll ever get there? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, making conservatism great again. Dial in now, 877-381-3811.
Let us see what we have here, shall we? I think we will. We have, let's see this. Let us go to Robert, Santa Clara, California, the great KSFO. Go right ahead, please.
Hey, Mark, I'm totally in agreement with you about these podcasters you were talking about earlier. I mean, it's just, it's not left or right. It's perverse. Madami's perverse. He's just not getting it. And he wants to expropriate, without creating. You can only expropriate your wealth if you know how to make wealth. And I'm totally with you on our shipping industry. I get what Trump's trying to do, energy independence, and, bringing back our own steel, building our own boats. I'm all with that. I hope we can get some agreement on. One thing I do wish the Republicans would do is get some sort of work visa program that appears to be generous and actually is, that reaches out to these identity groups that the Democrats push. But I'm not asking for amnesty. I'm asking for, putting out those we're hiring. And you're welcome to come here legally and work and a pathway to citizenship.
What you're saying is just enforce existing immigration laws. It's perfectly fine by me.
Exactly. One thing I was a little sketched out about was the SSI things that I've noticed. Some few of my friends have been cut by $400 who are kind of indigent. I know some people who are.
I know, but it's Social Security. Social Security is what it is. It's broke, so we can't keep going to the well. There are programs for the indigent. Many programs. The country's going broke paying for them, and that's what Medicaid is for. That's what other programs are for, and so forth and so on. But Social Security is supposed to be an insurance plan. It's certainly not, and it's got about 11 years left. So we can't expand programs that are slowly imploding. All right, I got to run. Good call, Robert. We appreciate you, buddy. Take care, Ray. Taylorville, Illinois, the great WTAX. How are you, Ray?
How you doing, Mark? Thanks for taking my call. Hey, talking about talk radio, you, Sean, several conservative talk show hosts back in the day, even Rush, is what got me into politics in the first place. So I hope that the younger generation or somebody out there that's wanting to get involved listens to your show and says, hey, I can do this, and I really hope that happens.
I fear the podcasters are really abusing the younger generation, especially males, playing into this woe is me attitude. Nothing they do will matter. The system is this and that and the other. The system needs work. It always does. No question about it. But we want the can-do attitude. We want people to be motivated. We want our people to get engaged, whether it's politically or just in the private sector. And I don't see any of these people doing that. None of them. That is, none of these podcasters. Very few, anyway.
Well, they're all in it for the fame, and
they're in it for the money. And I think a lot of them are getting help from dark sources that they don't reveal. And some of them are just ideologically warped. Utterly warped. But when you look at most of these people, they've been in some form of media their entire lives. They've really not contributed anything to the constitutional movement, the conservative movement, the Tea Party movement, the Convention of States movement. They are grifters. They're hangers-on. And as I say, come the new year, I'm going to get into this more specifically and start calling them out and pointing them out, in addition to the lowlives I've already pointed out. All right, Ray. Great call. I appreciate you, my brother. Let's keep going. Ken, Waterbury, Connecticut, Sirius XM Satellite. Ken, how are you?
God bless you, Mark. Thank you so much for taking my call, sir.
Yes, sir.
I just want to go, number one, thank you again for all you do. And the hypocrisy of the left just keeps blowing my mind. They just keep giving me reasons, or not just reasons, but facts on why they just keep talking out of both sides of their mouth. And I think you'll love this little factor right there. I feel like red buttons on the classic Dean Martin roast. What did red buttons always say? Why are we giving this man a dinner? Every time I turn around, I'm like, these people keep talking out of both sides of their mouth. And I'm going to go a little old school on this one. Like, when they were blaming Donald Trump, they were saying, "Oh, this is Donald Trump's stock market." When it took a hit because all the traders were scared because they kept feeding into the liberal left, saying, "Oh, we're gonna, we're in dire straits." But they're not saying anything about Donald Trump's stock market today.
Yeah, great point.
With, what I'm saying, and plus with all the the loyalties and on how hard pushing they were with, the free Palestine or the poor Palestinians are dying. They did not put that type of, push into. Thank you, Donald Trump, for stopping, putting the end to this war. And then when they found out that Hamas is actually killing Palestinians because they believe that they're siding
they say nothing. Nothing. No marching in the street. None of these Hamas front groups, they're all silent, or they still support Hamas. Same with their professors, same with their media, same with their Democrat Party leaders. You hear nothing because there's no opportunity to trash Netanyahu, Israel, and Jews. But the truth is that Muslims slaughter more Muslims than anybody else slaughters Muslims. Whether it's Syria, whether it's Yemen, whether it's any of these Arab countries for that matter. That's the truth. All right, my friend, thank you for your call. Great calls. Let's go to Ian in Frederick, Maryland, the great WMAL. How are you?
I'm doing great,
Hello.
Mark. Thanks for your show. And
Yes, sir.
I wanted to first throw out a thank you to all the first responders. I've got 2 sons that are first responders.
God
and
bless them.
I don't think they're getting enough credit for what they do. They protect and save our country's greatest resource, the people. And thank you to all of them.
Amen.
And then I wanted to jump into, I think the media and the Democrats, of course, are going to take a hit with this, holding out on the CR. But I think the media is really going to take a beating because once people start going hungry, in between people not getting a paycheck and, the SNAP programs that are about to end.
And SNAP is food stamps, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, right. Sorry. Yeah. So once that ends, when people go hungry, they really start to drill down and say, why is this happening? And they're going to find out it's flat out 5 Democrats of the Senate won't vote. And they're going to get a beating on this. I think they're going to get slaughtered.
Yeah, even though the press, of course, are in the Democrats' back pocket. Thanks for your call. To underscore your point, Harry Enton again, CNN chief data analyst. Hat tip, right scoop. Cut 10, Mr. Producer. Go.
Yeah, you might think, given that the Republicans are in charge of both the House and the Senate, that a government shutdown might actually hurt the Republican brand. But in fact, it hasn't. If anything, it's been helped a little bit. Take a look here, the shift in net popularity versus pre-shutdown. When we're looking at the Republican Party overall, that brand actually up 2 points. That's within the margin of error, but clearly it hasn't dropped. Come over to this side of the screen. Look at the net approval ratings for Republicans in Congress. It's actually up 5 points since pre-shutdown. So what we're seeing here is the Republican brand in Congress has actually improved somewhat compared to where we were pre-shutdown, despite the fact that Republicans control. And that's the math that John Thune and Mike Johnson are looking at is, well, hey, why should we give an electorally speaking when our brand has actually improved a little bit?
Now, we say their position is getting better. With whom?
Yeah, okay, with whom? So I think it's 2 groups that it's so important to keep an eye on. All right, changing the Republican Congress's net approval rating versus pre-shutdown. It's rallying the base for sure. Look at this, the net approval rating up 12 points versus pre-shutdown. But it's not just with the base. It's also with the middle of the electorate. Look at this, among independents, it's up 8 points as well. So we've got a situation here where Republicans with the shutdown are actually rallying their base, but it's also something that's not hurting them with the folks in the middle. If anything, it's helping them with folks in the middle. And this is the type of math that if you're Republicans, you like to see, right? Because something could rally the base but alienate those in the middle, or something could rally those in the middle but alienate the base. But the truth is, we're not seeing that. What we're seeing is the Republican brand has actually gotten better among independents, and it's also gotten better
All right, good
among
enough. That's
Republicans
because they're
as well.
right. That's because they're doing the right thing. One more I want to slip in here, Mr. Producer. One of the reasons is Mike Johnson has been doing an incredible job with these press conferences, as has John Thune. But here's the speaker. Cut 5. Go.
This is some of the things that they would propose that we spend money on again. They're demanding this is a ransom to reopen the government. Things like $4 million for global LGBTQI plus awareness campaigns around the world. $4 million for the LGBTQI plus democracy grants in the Balkans. They want $2 million for feminist democratic principles projects in Africa. We're not doing that. But again, the question is why? Why? This sounds crazy. It is. Why would they do this? And what we saw on vivid display over the weekend was the re-emphasis of this fact. This is motivated purely out of fear. And what do we mean by that? You saw the Democratic leader in the House, Hakeem Jeffries, endorse Zohran Mamdani for mayor of New York City on Friday. It was an illustration of what we're facing here. The Democrats right now fear the far left activists more than they fear air traffic controllers, Border Patrol agents, American service members, and so many others missing their paychecks. They fear the Marxist insurgents like Mamdani more than they fear families and children going hungry from lapsed benefits that keep food on their tables. They simply fear losing their own political positions next November if they don't appease the angry far left base right now. And they will appease that base at any cost, no matter how much pain's inflicted.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why the Republicans are winning the debate, because of that speaker. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right, let us go to Jeff, Madison, Wisconsin, the great WIBA. Go.
Hey, thanks, Mark, and thanks for speaking so beautifully for all of us who love this country. I just wanted to comment quickly. Yeah, sure. My concern is I think the American psyche is gradually descending into a sense that these Marxists are part of the normal American political discourse. My concern is less that Mamdani is going to trash New York and more that it's kind of an incremental normatization of Marxism. I grew up in Vermont in the 70s, and I remember Bernie Sanders running perennially for Burlington mayor, like 3 or 4 times. He was thought of as a kook and a laughingstock, kind of the Lyndon LaRouche of Vermont politics back then. And then he won, and then he became a representative, and now he's thought of as this kind of avuncular, wise elder statesman instead of what he really is. And I'm really concerned about this climate in our country where we're normalizing this Marxism.
Your call is very, very important. It's right on. This stuff spreads, and it spreads quickly. And as I've said, any Republican who says, well, it's New York and we can run on it is a moron. These ideologies, they change the voting systems. They'll do anything to manipulate the public mind. And they are extraordinarily dangerous. And they don't stay in one city or one state. Their goal is to conquer the entire country from within. And you're right. They're normalizing this. That's why when you attack it, you're called an Islamophobic and other stupid names when you're pointing out that somebody has ties to terrorism and is promoting terrorist groups and so forth. I don't know what else this guy can do. He's not in the closet. This guy's out of the closet. He is open mouth, full-throated, Marxist Islamist, American-hating Jew-hater. And that's the truth. And you can see it in Dearborniston, Michigan the other day. They had 40,000 people turn out. 40,000. And I see very little pushback. And I see some of the so-called leading podcasters, and they won't stay in that position. The American people can't tolerate it, who are actually busy undermining us, stabbing us in the back by attacking Christians and Jews and traditional American values. Jeff, great call, man. I appreciate it. You take care of yourself. I don't have any time for any other calls, others like Patrick and so forth. I'm sorry. Give us a call tomorrow. I consider today's program one of the most important. I think you know why. Because we got to get our sights straight. We've got to push back on many fronts. On the Marxist Islamist left, and on the neo-Nazi sort of Klansman right that is trying to normalize their viewpoints, their anti-Christian, anti-Jewish, anti-American viewpoints, and pretend that that's MAGA. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, and you, the American people. Where would the world be without you? Nowhere. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening.